Welcome.
It's the climax!
This is where things get weird. In the anime culture, there are three animes that are the most confusing,
I perform a much-needed job here in the city of amnesia.
most mysterious,
Will you join us in creating a new genesis for mankind?
and just downright zany.
Do you find this difficult to understand?
These, of course, are Neon Genesis Evangelion, The Big O, and Fooly Cooly. But strangely enough, if you add them together, a more complete picture emerges. It's like the Pixar theory, on crack. Why would you add them together, you ask, when there are three completely different shows? Because they're all connected, both in front of and behind the scenes. Besides the fact that Fooly Cooly directly mentions Evangelion,
He wrote a whole book on the deep mysteries of Eva.
the creator of Fooly Cooly, Kazuo Tsurumaki, is actually friends and protege to Hideki Anno, the creator of Evangelion, and was actually the assistant director under Anno for Neon Genesis Evangelion. Now when you look at the Big O and find who the creator is, you'll find a man named Hajime Yatata. When you look a little deeper, you'll find that Hajime doesn't exist. He's actually a pseudonym used for many writers working at Sunrise. Typically when two artists want to work together, but are contractually obligated not to, they work under a pseudonym. It's more than likely, given the similarities of these shows, that Kazuo and Hideko made the Big O, but weren't allowed to use their names. Let's look at some of the similarities of these shows. All three of them share similar scenes, like the protagonist having to catch something falling from space.
Impact is imminent!
How should we welcome this angel?
Or the reference to rain, or the perception of rain.
We have choices. Some people like to stand in the rain without an umbrella.
Sunny days make you feel good.
Rainy days make you so gloomy. But you can have fun on a rainy day as well.
And in both the ending of Eva Rebuild and the Big O, we see the world as a stage.
Understand, Roger. This city was created to be a stage.
As mentioned in episode 3 of the Toonami Bible, the Big O is in reference to an infinite equation like 10x equals 3.333, where every number after the decimal has a tiny fraction that could eventually be added up to change the point of infinity. Just like in Eva. Eva was a circular repeating show, just like the Big O. But in the Rebuild, the little differences, or fractions, added up to eventually change the point of infinity, so it wouldn't be circular anymore. The title of the Rebuild's American DVD release even references the Big O equation, titling 1.11, 2.22, and 3.33. During this series, you might have been asking yourself, what is the Toonami Bible? Well, my friends, it's exactly as it sounds. A Bible full of ethics, allegories of lessons, and a deeper spiritual meaning to life. Brought to you by
Toonami.
Neon Genesis Evangelion actually means,
New telling of the Gospel Genesis.
yeah right, narrator, why would there be a secret Bible on TV that was made so badass? Well, because one of the religions that these shows are based off of is known to do just that, hide their religion in plain sight. The religion is called Gnosticism, but back in the 12th century it was known as the Cathari, or the Cathars. Back in the 13th century, there was a crusade of two religious factions, the Cathars and the Catholics. The Cathars were followers of John the Baptist, a man whose head was brought to King Solomon's wife on a silver platter, with his two femur bones crossed under them. After the Cathars' loss, they created a rebellion to try to cause as much chaos as they could for the Catholics. They donned a flag that represented their religion. This flag is known as the Jolly Roger, and they were given the name Pirates. This gave rise to the Spanish Inquisition, to decimate what was left of the dying Cathars, and the Inquisition was good at what they did. So good that the remaining Cathars had to think of an alternative to keep their religion alive. But what? During this time, the Catholics were trying to bring in more followers from other religions, like changing Jesus' birthday to winter solstice, in order to bring in pagans and create Christmas. Aha, the Cathars thought. We have an in. They decided to create a story, one so compelling that others would flock to it. They would keep their secret hidden within the story in a coded message. They would then claim it to be a Christian story in hopes that their enemy would claim it and unintentionally keep their religion alive. The plan worked, and that story today is known as the Arthurian legend. You know, King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. The Holy Grail. Given that these shows have such heavy themes based off religion, it wouldn't be too far of a stretch to say that they were trying to reveal some spiritual secrets, suppressed by those who don't want you to know. After all, that's what Medical Mechanica represents in Fooly Cooly, the hand of control. To make you not think or wonder, to keep you distracted with consumerism, which is what this little guy represents in episode 6. It consumes and consumes and consumes until it's so engorged with its hunger, it's out of control and it destroys the town. Until it has the last of what it needs to activate the hand of control, Nauta, whose name actually means honesty.
I named you Nauta for honesty.
Once honesty is suppressed, the hand of control can go forward for its plans to flatten out the wrinkles. Where have we heard artists that make film cry out about this kind of thing before?
We know the air is unfit to breathe and our food is unfit to eat. All we say is, please, at least leave us alone in our living rooms. Let me have my toaster and my TV and my steel-belted radios, and I won't say anything. Just leave us alone.
Well, on every host planet, it always plays out exactly the same way. Populations rise, societies divide, wars spread.
A process which has been going on for centuries, if not millennia. Religion, patriotism, race, wealth, class, and every other form of arbitrary, separatist identification and thus conceit has served to create a controlled population, utterly malleable in the hands of the few. Divide and conquer is the motto.
We don't cause the destruction of a world, Captain Carter. We simply manage it.
Even the Pixar theory is all about the destruction of Earth and the suppression of people. There's still mysteries that we haven't figured out. The Egyptian pyramids, Coral Castle, the Bermuda Triangle, even gravity. If there's still mysteries in the world, it means we're not at our peak. It's possible these shows are trying to show us something more about our own spirituality and the suppression of it. Things like remote viewing, astral projection, telepathy, kinesis, even ki energy. In fact, there's a video on YouTube by Film Theory that actually shows how ki energy used in Dragon Ball Z is plausible. Dragon Ball Z also fits into the spiritual themes, because the show itself is based on a spiritual story, Journey to the West. Even Evangelion is riddled with things like chakras, the symbols of Tree of Life, the Hebrew star or the Merkaba. In fact, the palmistry of each character is actually accurate to each character, with Gendo having fire hands and Shinji having air hands. And both Evangelion and the Big O delve deep into the Jung, Schopenhauer, and Freud psychology, accurately. Even Carl Jung has stated that Gnosticism is a mythical telling of his analytical take on psychology. In the first episode of this series, we discussed the fruit of knowledge and the fruit of life. How the fruit of knowledge represents self and thought because no one can think for you. And how the fruit of life represents others and emotions because emotions such as laughter are shared. Claiming that there are two fruits is actually in the Christian Bible of Genesis, where God claimed there are two trees to be the most important, the tree of life and the tree of knowledge. And in the show, this is the representation of both the left and right brain, the creative and the logical. To be out of balance for one is to be too emotionally hysterical or too logically cold. This is why Naoto was picked by the alien Hideko, because he
utilizes the right brain and left brain's distinct thought processes.
It's a representation of balance. And when Shinji acquires the fruit of knowledge and the fruit of life, he's acquiring the balance of both sides of the brain. That's why episode 25 and 26 of the show, which the movie was actually meant to be a physical representation of episode 25 and 26, we go through a psychological analysis of each character. Each episode has a theme tied to the angels, which is a representation of the human condition and its journey to self-awareness. The same is true in FLCL, as Naoto learns to grow up, having learned a lesson in each episode. Like not to be cocky.
What's that? I didn't know it was such a big rumor. Jeez, what do I say?
Which the trigger in his head represents in episode 5. When he learns the difference between being cocky and being confident, is when he acquires atomisk and kicks ass.
Now listen, my name is Naota! Don't ever call me Takun again!
In fact, Naoto acquiring the power of atomisk in episode 6 is the same as Shinji acquiring the fruit of knowledge and the fruit of life in End of Evangelion. Them acquiring these lessons gave them enlightenment, or complete self-awareness, which in episode 1 of this series we discussed how empathy and introspection make up that sum of self-awareness. And Naoto being called the Pirate King
He got the powers of the Pirate King!
makes much more sense knowing its religious ties. In fact, the only characters of these shows that don't acquire enlightenment serve as a warning. Cowboy Bebop. While Cowboy Bebop goes through a journey, one that, from an outsider's point of view, seems wondrous, these characters simply just don't care. They're apathetic, and they don't see the wonders around them, because they're bottled in their own emotions. Samurai Champloo acts as the antithesis, a seemingly boring time, but the characters make the most of it. The whole point of Samurai Champloo is it's about the journey, not the destination. When living a selfish life, and not going through what you need to heal from, it'll eat you like poison, like what happened with Spike. Samurai Champloo shows what happens when you live a selfless life, one thinking of others, and trying to learn and grow through your problems. Each show is a lesson in ultimately bigger picture. Evangelion serving as psychology, Cowboy Bebop and Samurai acting as lessons on how we choose to use that psychology, and the Big O representing the history of humankind's cognitive development from youth to elder. Which is why Gendo in 3.33 says,
You assisted the evolution of those burdened with mortality by granting us the sophistication of civilization.
This means that we could not learn about our past without the structure of civilization, which is why we have a hard time knowing our own history before civilization. And Fooly Cooly being the allegory of suppression and enlightenment in our modern times. Is this a modern Bible like the title of Neon Genesis Evangelion suggests? Could be. The connections are all there. The themes are all similar and the lessons are real. But I'll leave that up to you. Until then, I think we come to terms, Space Samurai.